Ahoy there! Welcome to Adventure Calls. This is a Sea of Thieves podcast here on my channel. You know the drill by now. This is, what, episode 4? I'm joined by Derry, who is my loyal crewmate, but now is the regular co-host.
Hi, yeah, it's me up here. You've seen me before. You know who I am.
Today is a very special day because, not the day that we're recording, but the day I'm uploading this marks the 1-year anniversary since Sea of Thieves: A Pirate's Life, which is Disney and Rare's Pirates of the Caribbean crossover. There's so much to cover, so this is going to be a 5-part special. I don't know how long it'll take me to finish because we got to go over 5 different tall tales, and each of them are really in-depth. Like, there's so much to go over in just this first one. I don't even know how long it's going to be, so we're just going to take our time. We wrote down pretty much everything that we can about the tall tale that we want to mention. So what I want to start out with is the build up to Season 3. I want to talk about the context of this update back then. So the first 2 seasons of Sea of Thieves were pretty... I don't know, man. They felt like monthly updates that lasted for 3 months. We got very scarce amounts of content and cosmetics. It just wasn't that intriguing for a live service game. I don't know what you thought about those seasons, Derry, if you even remember what was in them.
I remember what was in them. It was mostly just fluff and random crap and events that weren't really interesting.
We got minor teases through Twitter and in-game of the popular character Duke moving around the map with some special runes with text on them. And they were teasing something beneath the waves. There wasn't much to really take away from this besides that the Silver Blade would be involved, which is Flameheart Jr.'s flagship from the lore. And that's really all we got. Come E3 2021, and everyone was blown away by the Sea of Thieves trailer. After 2 pretty lackluster updates, we get the craziest announcement I think we've seen for this game. I don't know what you think, Derry, but there has to be a recording out there of us watching that stream and me screaming for at least an hour straight.
Yeah, I was there when that happened, and the thing was, too, is I wasn't even too impressed till Jack Sparrow was on the screen. Like, that was, like, what happened is, like, because I remember, like, what happened was that they were just showing off, like, all the coral stuff, the stones. It's like, yeah, that's pretty cool. It's a pretty cool update. Then Jack Sparrow is on screen, and now it's, like, immediately way more hype. Because it's a Pirates of the Caribbean crossover with Sea of Thieves, which I'm pretty sure at that time, me and you kind of wanted that. More you than me. Because I think, weren't we watching the Pirates movies at the same time when that was happening?
So the thing is, Cheeto and I are very big Pirates of the Caribbean fans. I would say so, at least. We both equally love that original trilogy to death. I've seen those movies so many times. 4 and 5 we don't talk about, but fucking Curse of the Black Pearl, Dead Man's Chest, and At World's End, I will stand by those movies as long as I draw breath. I love those movies. So to see 2 of my favorite pirate franchises crossing over in such a big, spectacular way, 5 tall tales, like super involved in the lore, huge story beats, and there's just a lot to go over, as we've said. That trailer in particular, I'm a huge fan of. Like, you can tell that it's a Pirates of the Caribbean trailer even before Jack Sparrow shows up. Like, there's the Disney castle at the very start. Not actually the Disney castle, but it's the coral spire, and it's framed like the Disney castle. It's the first shot of the trailer.
I probably didn't pick up on that because I didn't expect it to be a Pirates crossover.
And on that scene at the same time, there's you can faintly hear Yo Ho Yo Ho playing. There's just the way that things are framed, the Calypso talking in the background. It's very easy. Like, a lot of people who aren't familiar with Sea of Thieves immediately was like, this is Pirates of the Caribbean, right? Like, that's what it has to be.
Yeah, like, for me, I'm not a huge Pirates fan. Like, I like the movies, but even this got me excited when it came out.
I mean, of course.
It was such, like, a big crossover and everything. And I didn't expect it. I didn't see it coming. And I don't think you did either, whenever it was
nobody could see this coming. Not insiders, not even the SOT partners who are friends and, like, involved with the developers. And who generally kind of have an idea what's coming next. Nobody knew about this except for Rare. They kept it such a good secret, even though 2 of the tall tale names were leaked like a month before we knew. And we didn't even know it was related. I'm so happy with the trailer, and the best part is they not only take so much after the movies, but they take after the rides. And I'm a huge fan of the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. I personally think that's the best theme park ride ever created. The very original one. And you know, they've kind of gentrified it with like pieces from the movies, but that's still okay. I mean, it's still one of the greatest theme park rides ever imagined, right? Like, I live in Florida. I've been on that ride more times than I can count. It's a really special place in my
Like
heart.
I even seeing the ride in Venice. I don't live in Florida, but it looks like it's really fun, really well put together, and just generally would be fun to go on something like that and to see it get referenced in Sea of Thieves and in such a nice way. And you could definitely tell, like after seeing the ride and seeing that, they literally just ripped some of it straight up and inspired a lot of the scenery, especially in the first and third Tall Tales.
And there's a lot to go over there as well.
Yeah,
So speaking of the tall tales themselves, I guess we should go into it, right? Like,
yeah.
so at every outpost was the new Castaways camp. This was being built over months of build-up, and we had no idea what it could be. A lot of people thought maybe it was like a merfolk faction or something, but this was actually the first new building we've seen on outposts. You know, we've got the emissary tables over time, we got stuff like that, and just bits and pieces of little additions to the outposts, but never a new building. So this was huge. And now it's a permanent addition.
Yeah. And even like with how the actual thing looks, I love how the building looks aesthetically and basically the
It
castaways
fits with the
design.
how the outposts look
Yeah,
really
it
well.
looks like it was there the whole time. So, which is something I really like.
And that's
Not
going to
to
be a
mention-
common theme with these tall tales, is how well it fits into the Sea of Thieves world.
Yeah. And not to mention, this is me because I'm like an art nerd. I like and love how the castaway is drawn and designed. It
Oh,
just
Tia
feels
Dalma herself, or
the castaway, not Calypso, yet.
you mean
I should
you mean
say.
the tent, or oh, you mean okay, I
the
get
actual NPC.
what you mean. Okay, I get what you mean.
Because the thing is, since I don't know pirates, I probably like didn't pick up on that it was Calypso immediately. You could probably tell by the voice just straight up.
It was an immediate thing for me. I
Like
was like,
I kind of suspected it. I thought it was a reference.
who else would that? I thought it could be a Sea of Thieves original character, but like, considering she knows Jack, I was like, there's no other character to be like. What?
But either way, like and aesthetically, these brought a whole new standard for the Sea of Thieves world. Like
Oh yeah.
with all of this stuff that got introduced.
So she kind of informs us about a prisoner aboard the ferryman who has a treasure beyond our wildest dreams. It's not really explicitly stated, but I think if you've seen the trailer, you can kind of get where this is going. So she performs a ritual. I always love when Sea of Thieves has these ritual cutscenes with like some of the Order of Souls tall tales. They always look really cool. I just love seeing magic in this world. It's really cool to
Yeah.
see because we always hear about it, but seeing the actual spells being done or like incantations being done is always something I like.
I hope we see more of it, just because it is interesting and it's kind of like an undermined topic. But
It's very
it
vague
probably-
as well.
Yeah, it's very vague.
But I love seeing like cursed artifacts and shit. It adds world building.
Exactly.
The Castaways camp wasn't the only thing that was immediately apparent from the outpost. You also get these crazy spire-looking things just docked off of every outpost. And these look kind of like a blight on the horizon at first, but once you start that first tall tale, you would know these are actually a portal to the Sea of the Damned, which is very important because for years we had been speculating about the Sea of the Damned. We'd heard about it just through the lore, through books, through characters talking, like Pendragon or the ferryman himself, but we'd never actually been there. There's tons of concept art in the art book about what it would look like, and we've always speculated about it. But this was our first actual taste. So you enter through the portal, and there's actually a somewhat of a loading screen into the first and third tall tales. It's I don't even know how to describe this dairy.
It's like the actual ride itself, as you like are kind of in between the fairy and reality, and like the real world, or not real world, the living world, I should say. And you just go in between, and you see all these like boats, like a reference to the first movie, I think.
No,
with all the
that's
boats with the candles.
So there's a reference to the third movie, which is, I want to say Commodore Norrington. No, Norrington is a different character, but it's Elizabeth's father from Pirates of the Caribbean. There's a scene where their ghosts are rowing on rowboats,
Yeah.
And you see that, you see a lighthouse, you see ghost ships kind of patrolling, and you hear audio from the ride.
Yeah, just
You know,
straight up from the
most theme
ride.
parks kind of, as you're getting into the main set pieces, they will kind of ease you into it with like dialogue, and that's the dialogue that plays. Like
That's
keep your ruddy hands in board, mateys.
it. Quite literally, it was like going on the ride whenever you
And
enter the
that's
loading screen.
this whole thing, start to finish, is like a theme park ride. There needs to be a tally for how many times I say that because it's going to happen a lot.
I mean, quite literally was their primary inspiration for most of the stuff.
I
you
mean,
see.
yeah, of course.
So yeah,
Disney's always been a huge inspiration for Rare, and it's nice to have an actual crossover that can reflect that completely. Personally, this is just a nice way to hide a loading screen. I love when games find clever ways and solutions around these kind of problems because, you know, we could sit the full minute just staring at the wheel turning like usual, but this is a nice way to set the atmosphere, to really kind of get you in the mood for the adventure you're about to start. So I really like that.
Because it's like minimal assets, but it gets you really in the mood and immersed that you are actually going to the Sea of the Damned.
Oh, of course.
It really makes you feel like that, so you're not even thinking about the fact you're going through a loading screen.
Last thing I wanted to say, you can also see phantoms of memories of pirates aboard your ship, just doing daily tasks, climbing the ladder, getting on the cannons, looking at maps, just doing random shit like pirates do.
There's also the parrot.
Just good attention to detail. Don't mention the parrot. That parrot's annoying as fuck. So, we arrive into the Sea of the Damned. We see this huge island full of spiky rocks and rough terrain that looks so alien. That's the best way we can really describe it. It may seem mundane now, over a year after the actual Tall Tales came out, but back then this was huge. Like I said, this was in the art book for years and only really talked about vaguely by characters in the world, but now we can actually explore it for ourselves.
Yeah, and the purple grass, the green sky, and just kind of the surprisingly calm waters of the Sea of the Damned. Not to mention the big celestial body is the best way to say it in the sky as well.
Oh, of course.
It literally feels like you're in a different world. Because you are. You're in a different dimension entirely. But I really think it just captures that mystery of where the hell are we? And it also looks really cool. Not to mention whenever you walk over the grass, it lights up too. And one other thing is, since the ghosts and phantoms are all about memories and being memories of stuff, a lot of the trees looked like they're being like in the wind, but they're frozen.
Everything looks frozen in time, from a land long forgotten.
Yeah,
Great attention to detail. Rare always knocks it out of the park with their art department. And they teamed up with Disney Games, too, which is the games division of Disney. And I follow a lot of those artists on Twitter and ArtStation who worked on that project. Dude, I've seen so much concept art from that, and I've used a lot of it in my videos as well. It's so good. I look at it every day. Like, it's wallpaper worthy. Every single part of this experience is just like wallpaper worthy. That's the best way to put it.
Yeah, and there's even a couple screenshots in game that are wallpaper worthy too if you have your graphics on max.
That's what I'm saying. Like every part of this experience is just worthy of like posting everything on Twitter.
And it's like a lot of the time too is like going through even the first bit, you kind of just want to look around. Because there are a lot of times I come back to this Tall Tale sometimes and I miss something I didn't see before. There's so much attention to detail in this environment, and I hope we get to see it again in the future, but I wouldn't be upset if we didn't as well. It's one of those things.
I think since those portals are kind of a blight on the horizon, excuse me, and they're everywhere, I don't see us not using those, because that would be just such wasted potential. The Sea of the Damned is a huge part of the story arc right now, especially, and I don't know, it would be kind of a bummer if we were just stuck on the same old seas all the time. That's definitely a way that Rare can add new locations for us to explore, and since how alien those environments are, how mystical they are, it adds a lot of potential for like new and interesting environments to explore in the future.
There's a lot of set pieces you can toy with too, with that. Like I just like thought of it that's on the spot as like you could have like a fire that isn't like roaring, but you can tell it's still there. So it just kind of like stuck in place. There's like a lot of stuff. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff you can do with the Sea of the Damned, and even take a completely different approach depending on where you are in the Sea of the Damned. There's a lot to cover with this Tall Tale. even just in the first like 5 minutes.
Aye, indeed. I mean, we're 15 minutes in and we've barely even started.
Yeah, we're still on the shore.
Right? Like, we haven't even entered the cave yet. Speaking of which, you enter the cave through this spiky rock cavern of alien mist and memory, and you come across the Flame of Souls at a campfire. You pick it up, and there's some pretty basic puzzles, just lighting lanterns. Like, if you've played Sea of Thieves, you've done this before. But as you light these braziers and move forward through the cavern, you start to see a story building of phantoms kind of working together as a pirate crew, just doing what pirates do, like we were talking about earlier. They're hauling treasure forward, they're raising anchors, they're rowing boats, and as they go together through this story that's being built, they're slowly being killed off one by one. Thus is the first theme we can really point out, is dead men tell no tales. Not only a huge part of the ride, but a huge part of this tall tale. Something I want to see now and potentially bring up later is Rare's thought process when bringing these two worlds together. What kind of speaks to both properties in a way that you could bring them together like that? And that is the fact that the Sea of Thieves is a pirate paradise, a place where every legendary pirate that ever lived would want to sail and get treasure for all eternity, right?
Yeah.
Death is more of an afterthought in the Sea of Thieves. People don't die there unless they're really cursed or like are bound for eternity to something.
They're just like evil people, and they're just damned. They break the pirate code essentially.
So this theme
That's
is
really
kind
what
of pointing out the difference between these two worlds, where in Pirates of the Caribbean, death may be the end to your tales. In Sea of Thieves, dead men do tell tales because we're in the Sea of the Damned. We're looking at the memories of these pirates. We're experiencing the tales themselves.
And even just going even further, we have been dead men at a point, and we come back to have more tales to tell.
Oh, of course.
It's just one of those things. It's like, it's a sense of irony in Dead Men Tell No Tales, especially in told in the context of Sea of Thieves. But that's a good contrast because these two worlds are so different, but also kind of similar at sometimes too. It's really nice.
I agree. When we're going through this cavern, we get plenty more references to the ride, like the skeleton with the seagull in his hat, the shipwreck in the rain, the music straight from the ride waiting room. When I first heard that, my ears were just buzzing. Like, I was so excited. I want to relate these to the original 9 Tall Tales, because when we were playing these originally, that's the context we were playing with. Because all we had at that point was just Shores of Gold and 2 Flameheart Tall Tales. The Flameheart Tall Tales are really good, but I just want to focus on Shores of Gold, because that's the main story we've gotten from Sea of Thieves, right? Shores of Gold was really driven by fetch quests and some added context in the journals, but like, a lot of it is mundane. Replaying that stuff and trying to convince new players to replay that stuff is like, there's so many caveats. It's like, Shores of Gold is super awesome, especially for its time. Like, when we played it back then in 2019, totally blew it out of the park. But
Yeah.
This is 3 years later. We've got a lot more shit to contend with now. So Shores of Gold is kind of mundane comparatively, if you ask me. Aside from the last Tall Tale, we can all agree that's incredible.
And not to mention that, like, with Shores of Gold, to even, like, 100% it, too, you had to play it 5 times.
Oh, tell me about it.
Yeah, there's a lot to it that I think the old Tall Tales really didn't age that well in comparison to what we got now. So good. Definitely you should give them a play at least once.
Great for getting into the lore. Like, there's a lot of good insight into characters and, like, how the world works.
But I would definitely start a new player out who cares about story or cares about, like, having a direction to go in as opposed to just being sent out and doing whatever. I'd have them play Pirate's Life.
Of course. And also, it's more immediately gravitating because you have Jack Sparrow.
Yeah, I mean,
and all these lovable characters that everyone who has experienced pop culture before knows. I mean, these are some of the most popular characters in fiction ever created.
Yeah, at least in the United States, like.
I'm just talking worldwide. Like, that ride is everywhere. Just the ride itself.
And it's just, this is the perfect way to get a new player in who cares about story. I really want to emphasize who cares about the story of anything, really. But I think it's a good way to teach mechanics of the game. Obviously, the maiden voyage as well. is a good starting point. But if you really want to hook someone on this game,
Start them
Pirate's
with a
Life.
Pirate's Life, man. I mean, it's really immediately gravitating. It's the most high quality content Rare has ever created. I will say that
That,
right now
and
because
that
it's
still
true.
stands.
That still stands. And that is not a blight on the new content because of course it's not. It's just nothing could live up to this, right? Like that's not a blight on the new content at all. I love everything Rare is doing right now with the story, but like what could match up to this?
Well, I think it's encroaching on that quality of that right now. It's
I
because
would say
it's because
we're getting there, but I'm just saying in terms of raw scope. I don't think
yeah,
we'll reach this
these are
again.
these are tall tales, and we're getting adventures.
Yeah,
There is a
they
big
don't relate
difference.
because they're not the same.
Yeah, but this broke the Sea of Thieves community when these came out and all these references and all that other
Oh, of
stuff.
course.
And even like continuing on, like there's even a lot of interesting characters that were even unique to this as comparison to like any other stuff.
Oh yeah, and we'll get into that too. It not only takes part in the Pirates of the Caribbean lore, but like heavily builds on the Sea of Thieves lore as well. And we get some great fan favorite characters who I'm a big fan of. But we're getting to that.
Yeah.
Last thing I wanted to say about this is Pirate's Life really emphasizes set pieces, building atmosphere, and feeling like a theme park ride, because that's the main inspiration, right? That's how Tall Tales should be, that's how Adventure should be, and I'm certain that Rare has learned so much from this experience, working with Disney and learning like what kind of content is most gravitating and engaging for players when it comes to story building. And they certainly have used a lot of the mechanics and the systems they've built for their current adventures, which is a really good thing.
There's like a lot of new stuff that was introduced in this that are now mainstays to like any new content you
Yeah,
get as well.
Legend
which
of
I
the
really
Veil
like.
is the most immediate kind of thing I can relate it to, because that voyage would not be possible without a pirate's life. There's so many systems and little mechanics that got added for the developers internally that allows them to create such good content now.
Yeah, mainly the interactivity with the environment. We used to not be able to move stuff around or physically pick up some objects and look behind them, or even just like minor details. We see a lot more pulleys now too. I think after that, even though they were in the game before Maiden Voyage, we didn't really see them out in the open seas. But then this did that, and also some puzzles too, like aspects of puzzles from some of these tales. Not even just this first one, but all the other tall tales. They introduced some kind of puzzle that we see now all the time, and I love that because a lot of stuff is mainstays, and I hope we get more of this stuff in the future. Honestly, when it comes to new mechanics.
After we go through these caverns, there's not really a lot to mention on the caverns anymore. Except there's another reference to the ride, a skeleton sitting on a huge pile of gold on his captain's chair. That's straight from the ride as well. After that, we go through a waterfall, which is straight out of the Goonies. We arrive at Sailor's Grave, which is a shipwreck graveyard of forgotten sailors and mishmash bits of a port town. What do you think about Sailor's Grave, Derry? I'm a huge fan of this kind of design. There's a town in Monkey Island 2 that is a lot like this. There's a town in Pirates of the Caribbean that's a lot like this. I love when in these kind of franchises, pirates are able to build a sanctuary out of their own rides, basically.
I really like this town, even though it's not my favorite tall tale or even my favorite set piece. I love how it feels like that this place is lived in.
Oh,
that's
of course.
That's my one best thing about this area is it feels like people lived here and that people did things here.
Oh, of course. There's a lot of environmental storytelling all throughout this tall tale and the third one, and even the second one and the fourth one.
Well, even in this, there's literal side stories going on of other pirates doing their own thing. Even all the accommodations are actually, you don't even need a guide to do a lot of these accommodations because you could just go around and talk to the NPCs.
If you have a nose for exploration and really finding out puzzles, then this is the tall tale for you. It's just an open town, free to explore. You don't even have to do the main objectives until the very end. You can just kind of go off and do your own thing.
Not to mention that, like I said, I'm going to keep saying about the environment is beautiful and also alien. Especially in the beginning where it's like that little white stone bridge all around this other stuff. Then like piles of ships that have been broken and mangled and turned into makeshift houses. It's just like a mishmash. Like definitely people just kind of took apart their ships and made a house.
Hi.
And just found this place like, yep, this is our pirate town now.
As we kind of walk forward through the town, we come across a floating cage? Floating is the wrong word. It's hanging
It's
from
hanging on
bits
a rope.
by a rope on bits and pieces of a ship's stern. And we hear a very loud-mouthed, bony freak screaming down at us. The Cursed Captain, the best character in Sea of Thieves, and Mike Chapman's personal favorite. Mike Chapman is the creative director and the writer of the story.
Yeah.
Walking around with the skull in hand is such a treat. Like, he talks to you, he has some great banter. He tries to fucking scare you, like, he's so funny. He really just represents, like, Rare perfectly. The sense of humor is unmatched by any other character, I think.
I will say that this is probably the only character in Sea of Thieves that has made me audibly laugh sometimes at what he says. Especially the first time around, hearing the jokes and quips he has to say.
It's really surprising.
And even what he has to say whenever he's doing other stuff that isn't the main story. We'll talk about that, but one of my favorite interactions in the entire game is with the Cursed Captain and one of the accommodations.
The Cursed Captain's story is that he sailed into the Sea of the Damned by accident, trying to protect his riches. He couldn't imagine leaving and threatening his own gold, so he stayed with his crew as they slowly were cursed by their own treasure. Yeah, they started building a town out of their own ships, piecing it together and drinking the nights away. But as they continued, the crew was getting unsatisfied. They wanted to cash out their riches, but the Cursed Captain couldn't do it. He snuffed out the lighthouse, and his own crew mutinied against him, and they cut off his head and put it in a cage. Pretty cool backstory, if you ask me. I like that it was all told through the environment, and you can read it through the journals.
Yeah, and even some of the dialogue that the Cursed Captain even says himself, you can kind of piece some of it together. And you can even see, like, towards the end of the tall tale, his crew is, like, regretful that they even did that, which is a funny little detail. You can hear them apologizing. He's like, I'm sorry, Captain, I'm sorry.
And clearly they only feel bad because he got freed, and now he can boss them around.
Yeah, exactly. It's not like they actually care.
Before we continue out of a sailor's grave, I want to go over the Easter eggs that are here because there are a good amount to go over.
There's a lot.
That involves some discussion. So the first one, the biggest one. Deep in the Caribbean, a shipwreck lying at an island that you cannot reach without some know-how. You have to light a brazier by getting on a shipwreck, and a bridge will allow you to cross. And what is this a reference to, Derry? A familiar tune starts to play, and
we already mentioned it earlier. It's Monkey Island. Monkey Island, the entire franchise is referenced in this little thing.
Aye, indeed. It's the wreck of the Headless Monkey from the second game, LeChuck's Revenge. From the journals, what we can gather, Threepwood and Elaine sailed into the Sea of Thieves on their honeymoon and were being closely followed by Captain Kate from the second game. This is just huge. Like, first of all, I gotta get this out there. Robin Beanland's rendition of the Curse of Monkey Island theme, or the Secret of Monkey Island theme, or just the Monkey Island theme in general. Insane. I listen to that every single day. It is so good.
I think you used it in one of your videos too.
I have, yeah. I've used it in multiple videos. And if the upcoming Return to Monkey Island can even do justice to that theme, we're going to be eating well.
Something I'd like to mention about this is reading some of the journals. There's a lot of implications about Threepwood just sailing into the Sea of Thieves as well. A lot of implications, if you want to.
I'm the only one. Let me give some context to the viewers, I guess. I've played Monkey Island 1, I've seen Monkey Island 2, and I've seen a really good amount of Curse, which is the third one. And Derry has no knowledge of this series besides what I've told him.
Exactly, and watching him play some of it.
Yeah, those games are so funny. I'm a huge fan of this Easter egg. Like, it's definitely one of my favorite game Easter eggs ever. It's just a shitty shipwreck from like a small part of the second game, but God, there's no other. It's so good. And I hope one day, and I want to get into this probably in the final episode more, I really hope we can see Threepwood in game. Maybe
Yeah,
with the licensing behind Monkey Island is so weird, and that's why it took like 2 decades to really get the main guy back on the series. But I really hope we can see that one day. That's such a dream of mine, to
it
see
would
him
be.
within the Sea of Thieves.
It would also be like a 3D rendition of the character too,
Oh
as
yeah,
well, and in the Sea of Thieves art style. And even the little I know about Monkey Island, Threepwood would be awesome in this world.
he's a really
Especially
funny
from
character. He's dumb as fuck.
yeah, especially from what I've heard of the games. And like I said, implications of him actually being here and this being an Easter egg and canon to some extent. It won't really be confirmed until we actually see him. But, you know.
I mean, I think the lore of other series isn't too important considering Johnny Depp or Jack Sparrow, the character, didn't actually sail to the Sea of Thieves, at least within the Pirates of the Caribbean lore. Like, it doesn't affect the other series. We can just kind of infer, like, okay, in the Sea of Thieves world, like, these characters exist differently.
It's just a cool crossover.
Yeah, it's not, like, too much
I
insane
was more
shit
so
to look
mean
into.
canon to Sea of Thieves rather than canon
Oh,
to their
yeah.
home series. That's
I just wanted to get it out there that I didn't think it was too important to
And-
worry about other series canon.
Yeah, more so contained into Sea of Thieves as the implications of Threepwood being here.
That's about it for the Monkey Island reference, but I just want to kind of end it on, like, I'm so happy that they were able to fulfill that. Working with Disney and LucasArts, like, Monkey Island rocks, and I really need to finish those games. That's a blight on my radar that I need to do.
Yeah.
The next Easter egg I want to go over is Poor Dougie. Another great character, like, he's so standout. He's just a down-on-his-luck pirate with one of the best voices in the game. I love his accent. I love his voice lines. He just... I don't even know how to describe him. He just is so depressed in, like, the funniest way.
I kind of feel bad for him, but I don't. It's
Oh,
one
of
of those
course.
characters. He's one of those characters. You just, like, whenever you do the accommodation, you go over, you dig him up, and he's like, oh, poor Dougie, yada yada. And he even's like, he's just so defeated. Is the
That's
best
a good way to put it, yeah.
He's defeated.
You bring him his treasure chest that was stolen from him, and inside is one little trinket. That's all that's left. Quite funny. And he lets us have it, too.
Yeah,
So
he's like, oh, you can split whatever we have. And he doesn't even get anything. We get it. He doesn't. That's another thing.
There's the Pajama Pirate, which is another reference to the ride. Inside one of the shipwrecks, there's a pirate reading a map, wearing some pajamas. You turn on the braziers, and the theme from the ride starts playing. From that specific part of the ride, the Pajama Skeleton. That map actually leads to Poor Dougie. You take Poor Dougie's trinket, you get some of Captain Bones' beer recipe, which is a crazy Sea of Thieves reference. Captain Bones was a social media account from 2016, 2017 that was showing concept art and teases from the game. And he wasn't, that account has been inactive since 2018.
Yeah.
And we see what happens to him. His fucking head explodes.
That's like, that was my favorite interaction in the side interactions that we have. Is you basically just put the cursed captain on top of the guy's head. Like once he explodes after drinking the beer.
I need to have some of that.
Yeah, right? Oh yeah. Well, yeah, the two skeletons are just playing chess. They wager something. Then after the guy's head explodes, the cursed captain just wins the chess game and shoots the guy. Which is just funny. And
It's
he
so
even like makes
perfect.
a quip about it.
It's so perfect for like what the cursed captain would do in that situation.
Yeah. I wonder if that chess game is actually playable out of curiosity. If someone actually like saw if that was a move that he could do. Probably was, knowing Rare and their attention to detail.
I mean, I doubt they would put in a wrong chess move considering the amount of detail that's in these tall tales.
Yeah.
Not that it matters, it's a fucking chess game.
Well, it's attention to detail. Rare's all about it.
That's kind of it for the Easter eggs. So back on the mainline story, there's a huge lighthouse off the beaten path of Sailor's Grave. Huge fan of this lighthouse. It seems like a really small thing, but I gotta get it out there. I love this mechanic, and I want them in the overworld. We all know that Golden Sands is being rebuilt. That's old news. But what if I told you there should be a lighthouse there? There should. Because we need a lighthouse in the open world.
I second that. Because this, like, mechanic where you have to use the actual light with two players or just one guy. It's best with two players. One controls the up and down, and one controls left to right on each side of it. And you get to light braziers and stuff, or even just shine the light on something. And I think that would be really cool. Imagine like defending Golden Sands, and you like use the lighthouse to spot a ship in the distance.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, outposts are already the islands you can see from far away. That's how they're designed. They have lights that are visible from as far as the eye can see. So imagine, like, why not up the ante? Why not add a new kind of building to these outposts that really kind of signifies, like, hey, this is a port. Come over here.
Yeah, and it definitely would be a good landmark if you were on a rowboat and you need to navigate. Like, oh, that's the lighthouse. I need to go this way
Yeah.
from here, or yada yada. Like, I
Last-
think that would be such a good thing.
Last thing I want to say, I really want to sail a galleon under the light. Sounds so simple, sounds really stupid actually, but like, I love having light sources that we can control. They added flares in Season 5, huge fan of that as well, like, but a lighthouse would be a perfect addition to the overworld.
You definitely take a lot of cool screenshots, and you can. This might be like a little bit reaching for what they might do. If you ever get the colored flames, you can control the color of the light.
That would be
too.
perfect. Holy shit.
Yeah, you could take some really nice screenshots with that, with some really interesting lighting that you don't normally see. That might be reaching for what they might do, but you know, anything's possible at this point. I mean, Captain Jack Sparrow got into Sea of Thieves, and never thought that would happen.
And trust me, we're getting there. That's the end of my lighthouse rant. I can't believe we just spent like 3 minutes talking about that, but
The lighthouse
you heard
is
it.
awesome.
You heard it here first, Rare. Add that fucking lighthouse. We light the brazier and call forth the ferrymen by undoing the cursed captain's own deed of snuffing out the lighthouse. The ferryman brings forth his ship, and his wraiths come out from the ship and kind of ferry over the souls that have been lost for eternity. Actually seeing the ferryman find forsaken souls and ferry them back is like, this is what the Sea of the Damned is supposed to be like. Like, this is what we've heard about in the lore, but only now are we actually seeing, like, this is what actually happens.
And we've only been told what the ferryman does, but actually seeing what he does is different than someone telling us what he does, or him telling us what he does just from talking to him in the ferry.
Last thing I want to say, in the actual game, when we die, we're automatically aboard the ferry. But time works differently in the Sea of the Damned. When we die, our souls are just there. Like, they're just among the waves of the Sea of the Damned, lost. And until the ferryman can find us, that's when what happens in game, is when we're actually aboard the ferry. So time works very differently. What is years in the Sea of the Damned is just seconds of the real world. So every time we die, we're actually lost at sea for hours and months and years.
But it's nice little detail, and like even seeing it from an outside perspective, this is what the ferryman does. Awesome.
Aye. After lighting the lighthouse, we take the cursed captain's head, take him to his own shipwreck, the Golden Hare, which he says is the fastest ship on the seas. That's the Black Pearl, dude. What are you talking about?
No. The Chris Captain's awesome. That is the fastest ship. What are you talking about?
Sure. We board his ship, enter his captain's cabin, and he kind of tells us a whole spiel about not all treasure is silver and gold. Obvious reference to the movies. But in this instance, he's referring to Jack. Calypso, or the Castaway, sent us to the Sea of the Damned to search some pirate treasure beyond our wildest dreams. But the actual treasure we're looking for is not a trinket. I mean, of course it is, but it's a man. We board the ferry with the help of the cursed captain, and we're actually breaking the pirate code by doing this. That's the first time canonically we're breaking the pirate code. That's kind of crazy. I didn't think Rare would have the balls, because the pirate code is supposed to be the community code of conduct. So if we can break that, what other kind of shit can we do, right?
I mean, the Reapers technically break the normal
that as
pirate
well.
code
Yeah.
in the game.
I like that. I like that canonically they have the balls to kind of do that. The ferry ferries the souls back to the living world, and we put the flame of souls in the brazier of... I don't even know if it has a name. It likely does. I don't even know what to say.
It does have something in game. We just didn't write it down.
The brazier of souls. Let's give it that pretentious name. We put the flame of souls in the brazier of souls, and it explodes. Like, okay, I'll take that. That's fine.
Yeah.
We go to the lower decks against the wishes of the ferryman, and we hear a familiar line. Come on, give Jack the bone. Super
Yeah.
obvious reference to the ride, and super obvious reference to the first movie where Jack is stuck
Yeah.
in the jail cell, and William
Yeah.
Turner has to let him out. Super
It's
surreal. Let me be the first to say, seeing Jack Sparrow in our Sea of Thieves, our pirate game. What is happening, Derry? What the fuck is happening?
we're letting Jack Sparrow out of the Ferry of the fucking Damned.
That's a loreception. I don't even know, man.
Yeah,
That was
and that's
so surreal.
not to mention, there's a little cutscene that plays when you get Jack out once you.
Oh yeah,
spot
I feel like
these
that's the.
keys.
I don't feel like I know that is the first like real cutscene we have from a first-person perspective. I would
Yeah,
love to
and
see more of this.
I believe the player that triggers the cutscene too, they have their camera movement locked.
That's what I'm saying. Like nobody else can see the cutscene, which like technical limitations. That's fine. But I'm glad that we have that kind of thing.
And it's such a detail. Plus the way that Jack moves around the boat when he's talking to you, though his delivery, it is Jack Sparrow in your pirate video game in your computer, and he's gonna come out and say, "Pirate's life for me," yada yada. He's real. He's in your game.
Even though it's obviously not Johnny Depp, it's the Kingdom Hearts 3 voice actor. They actually got the stunt double for Johnny Depp from the movies to come on board and kind of show them the mannerisms and like how to best animate. And I think he did a lot of mocap for it too.
Yeah,
Really
that's
great
what it
attention to
looks like.
detail. Like Jack fits the character so well, and by that I mean the actor. Like they did a great job to really bring him to life in the game.
I also really like how Jack looks in game, and I really think that they did a very good job transferring him to the Sea of Thieves art style. If only, like, honestly, this is gonna sound really weird. Jack Sparrow is probably the most like normal looking character in Sea of Thieves, like normal looking NPC, but that makes him stand out because everyone looks ugly in Sea of Thieves in a good way.
The treasure that Jack stole, he shows us himself. A small trinket that kind of looks similar to another Disney property. They kind of just call it the greatest pirate treasure ever.
That would
Which,
be the One
like,
Piece.
yeah, I mean, that is the One Piece, but this is a different show. uh, I don't really know what to say about this. It is a trinket that allows you to travel between the worlds, and it is pretty plot relevant in this, but it's pretty kind of like skipped over. Like he just kind of mentions it in passing. He's like, "Yeah, I came here with this trinket." And that's what Davy Jones is after, of course. And that's why the ferryman locked him up, because that treasure is extremely dangerous. If someone bad got a hold of that, something bad could happen.
I feel like that it's going to sound weird. This is the only negative thing I have to say about the story. I feel like that was made out of plot convenience so the story could work.
Of course. It is the MacGuffin. Like, how else would you get Jack Sparrow to the Sea of Thieves, right? Like, I'm satisfied with that answer enough, and I think there is more to be said about it in the future that I will not go into right now, but
as contained in A Pirate's Life, it is a plot convenience.
Of course, but I do think if they wanted to alleviate that kind of feeling, they should have gone into it a bit more, or given it a greater like purpose, at least greater like emphasis in the script, because they only mention it such a handful of times.
At least give it a name.
And it is implied that there are two of these, and Jack stole one of them from Davy Jones, which makes sense to me, because that's how Davy Jones gets to the Sea of Thieves.
Yeah.
We get some good banter between Jack and the ferryman. It's really funny to see these characters interact with the Jack Sparrow. Just really surprising. And we get some more of that later. But it's mostly the Pirates of the Caribbean characters interacting with Jack. For the most part. Until a later one, which I don't want to spoil. Who would have thought Davy Jones rises from the depths of the Sea of the Damned and is after his own treasure? We have a huge fight with the Dutchman and the ferryman. Jack wields the ferryman's cutlass. There's a really cool quote I like, which is a dead man's sword for a dead man's hand. Using the ferry's cannons is really surprising. This is a nitpick. This is a really big nitpick. The ferry in the real world, like the overworld, has 3 cannons on one side, but we have 4 on each side in this tall tale. Obviously, it's for a gameplay reason, but we still have no idea why the ferryman has 3 like, we don't know.
That's such a small nitpick. I didn't know about that till now.
And I don't like. Why not just give it the 4 cannons if it's a big
Yeah,
deal?
they could have just updated the model at that point. But...
Hold on. The Burning Blade, Flameheart Senior's flagship, also has 3 cannons on one side, but there is a reason for this. We've seen that cannon in game at Wanda's workshop. That's how Wanda made the cursed cannonballs with that iron, that cursed iron from that ship. But we have no idea about the ferryman's ship. It's such a small nitpick, but maybe it'll have some future significance. Who knows?
It could have just also maybe they carried the same model over and they forgot to fix that. I don't know.
What do you mean the same? Well, if it was the same model, it would have 3 cannons.
No, not the same model. I meant like they probably were just using it as a base and they forgot to add the 4th cannon. I don't know. I'm not a game developer. It's probably a mistake. Or
I think it's intentional because we've had that ferry for over 4 years now, and it still only has 3 cannons.
Do you think so?
I think they gave it a 4th cannon. The point I want to get at, they gave it a 4th cannon for gameplay reasons. That much is obvious. But why does it have 3 cannons is what I'm asking. I think we'll get that answer one day, but if we don't, I also don't care.
Yeah, we have no leads on it, and we have no explanation really for it.
It's also not a big deal.
Yeah, but the one good and big thing about this fight is enemies actually boarding a ship. Ocean crawlers, the new unique enemy type that was added in this set of tall tales.
One of the new unique enemy types. It's actually 3 in 1, which is a thing that is often overlooked. It's 3 separate enemies that are kind of classified under one banner. And they all work together, they have synergy, they have actual AI that will help each other by giving them like armor or different status effects. I see a lot of complaints about these AI enemies, but dude, people are going to complain about any AI enemy. I think they're really fucking well designed for what they are.
I love the ocean crawlers. My only complaint is on release, they just were too common.
Oh, of course. And I think that sentiment has just not gone away. Like, at release, they were broken. They would spawn every 5 seconds. But now they have a really good spawn rate, I would say, and that sentiment hasn't gone away, that they spawn too much. But I don't deal with it that much.
I think our perspective is warped because we're Pirate Legends that do Pirate Legend Voyages, which typically have harder enemies. Like, skeletons just have more health.
Yeah.
And everything. But, like, whenever I'm going on a normal island, like, unrelated to a voyage, I barely see them.
Kinda, yeah.
That's something I noticed. But it's such a big thing, and I really wish, it's probably never going to happen, but I really wish that ocean crawlers could board your ship or some kind of enemies in the normal game could board your ship, but I know the technical limitations to that because this is a scripted event.
I don't even think the technical limitations are the problem. I think it's the way they would implement it. Because if ocean crawlers could, if it was an emergent encounter, it would be very lackluster. Like, you just get enemies that occasionally can board. Like, that's cool enough. I think it would be a part of a world event where, like, maybe one of those giant mermaid statues from Tall Tale 5 comes out of the water and you try to destroy it while ocean crawlers board you and try to stop you. Some shit like that. Like, I just pulled that out of my ass. But, like, I don't think adding them to as a random encounter would really be like substantial. Like, it would just be like, okay.
I was more so saying is that they should do something like that in the normal game.
Yeah, I agree.
Tall Tale, in some way, shape, or form.
But I do like that mechanic. I think we can both agree this fight is kind of drawn out. It just takes a little bit longer than I would like it to. Like, we should get at least a few scuffles with the ferry, and then it should progress.
My biggest problem is once you defeat all the ocean crawlers, Jack is still fighting for like an extended period.
Yeah, there's a cutscene of Jack fighting a crab ocean crawler at the front of the ship, and it's the same animation looping over and over. It's a good animation, like it's a funny little fight of him losing his sword and getting bested and getting the upper hand and then getting bested, but it just keeps repeating. And it really kind of gives you the sense like, oh, like this just keeps happening.
And especially if you defeat the ocean crawlers way faster than the developers intended, he just keeps doing it while you just kind of stand there.
Yeah, it's like, I can defeat these ocean crawlers, no sweat, but the Jack Sparrow is taking his sweet-ass time.
Yeah. But the actual thing itself, though, is seeing the Dutchman in-game. That's probably my favorite part about that, is seeing the actual Dutchman, how big it is in comparison to any ship we've ever seen in the game.
I love the different ship type, like different shapes. I'm a big fan. And the ferryman itself, like, let me indulge a little bit. Just in terms of Pirates of the Caribbean, I totally love that ship. We're going to talk about that more in episode 4, but I love the Dutchman. Let me just get that out there.
Yeah, we'll be way more detailed with that. There's a lot of Easter eggs on the Dutchman, and a lot of speculation when it was coming out that probably won't actually happen. But it's
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff that the Dutchman has brought to the table potentially, and it's just nice to see it in game. This big ass ship, the biggest ship in the game.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and you actually fighting it and stuff. And I just think that actually shooting the cannons at the Dutchman and then just kind of going back and forth, it's entertaining to do, and I guess it's a good way to practice your aim.
Totally
to an
agree.
extent.
The fight ends with Davy Jones dropping the anchor, which in the Pirates of the Caribbean would normally release the Kraken, but it just kind of sends out a shockwave. Okay, I'm satisfied with that. Like, I don't know how the Kraken would get in the Sea of the Damned, so, like, sure.
That's okay. It's a ghost Kraken. It's a memory of a Kraken.
That's what I was expecting originally, but then he just sends out the shockwave and, like, Jack falls overboard. Okay, I'm satisfied with that. Jack's soul and the treasure are lost aboard the Sea of the Damned for now. And that's kind of the cliffhanger that leaves us. The ferryman forgives us for now. He kind of lets us go, but only to save the pirate's life. And that's kind of where our story ends. We exit through the ferry's door, and our ship is sailing back into the overworld, and we get this great cutscene.
I love the shot with the giant red sun as your ship is sailing
with
back
the arena tavern as well.
Yeah, I love that shot, and that is the wallpaper material.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Right then and there. I don't know how many times whenever I did this originally, I was just kind of like, I need to take a screenshot of this. I need to take a screenshot of this right now.
Yeah, every single thing is screenshot worthy. We're gonna keep saying that, of course. Any final thoughts on this tall tale? And I also want to know where it ranks among these 5 for you.
For me, this tall tale was a good introductory. It's not my favorite, but it is definitely a good introduction, and probably like I said, a good tall tale, but not my favorite for various reasons. Not that it's bad, just the other ones are just better, ironically enough. And like how we're talking about how we're playing this up, I was like, how could they get better? Oh, well, they could. A lot better.
Oh, of course. As for me, this update could have just been this tall tale, and I would be satisfied. There's a lot to say. I love all the new mechanics that came. Obviously, I'm looking at this through rose-tinted glasses because this is the intro to one of my favorite story modes of any video game I've ever played. This is one of my... A Pirate's Life, I feel like I owe it to make this 5-part series just because it is, like, I feel like one of the greatest stories I've ever experienced. Just as a Sea of Thieves fan, a Pirates of the Caribbean fan, and a fan of fucking video games, dude.
Yeah, there's a lot of great storytelling, and this set a new quality standard for Sea of Thieves whenever these came out, and this tall tale is a great way to represent that new quality standard.
As for, yeah.
To recite the beginning, we had been getting lackluster updates and minimal content for like 2 seasons, a whole
just over even 2 like, seasons, honestly. Like a few of the monthly updates before that too.
Yeah, and then this drops, and then we're like, oh, that's what they were doing.
Yeah, and we cut them a lot of slack after that because for a while I was kind of losing my interest. I was like, you know, Sea of Thieves had a really good 2-3 year run. And I thought they were going to start slowing down and just kind of put out Emporium content because we hadn't gotten like significant changes to the story for a while and it was just getting kind of mundane. But then they came out with this and everything after that completely followed the momentum, I feel like.
Yeah. And that there still had been slow points, but we now know what to expect whenever whenever there's a content drought, we know they're doing something big.
Oh yeah. And like for a while we were getting for over 3 years we were getting like we just didn't have a surprise like this, and now we know that Rare can do something like this and deliver on something like this. Last thing I want to say about this specific tall tale, I think there is actually some good open world design that can be learned from Sailor's Grave. All the puzzles, the way that they link together and bounce off of each other. Just the fact that it is a open space to explore at your own leisure. It's not only a great environment to explore from an art perspective, but like the puzzles are logical, like they make sense.
Yeah.
And you're really greatly rewarded for your exploration too.
And within the content or within the context of Sea of Thieves 2, the combinations are actually fun to do.
I think this would be my third favorite Tall Tale. Uh,
That's where I'm gonna place it too, because that's what I was thinking in my head. It's like, yeah, it's probably my third favorite because it's not bad. It's not my favorite either.
yeah.
So it's a good introduction. That's really what it has to be. It's still probably better. I like this Tall Tale single-handedly more than all of the what's it called, Shores of Gold set of Tall Tales.
Damn.
And that says
Even
all
more than the Shores of Gold itself?
not more than Shores of Gold itself, but everything before Shores of Gold itself.
As for
I
Sea of
la-
Thieves original content, I think Shores of Gold and Legend of the Veil are like up there.
yeah,
Actually, I
yeah.
think Shores of Gold is just a bit above Legend of the Veil for me. Just a bit.
I kind of disagree, but like I said, I
I'm
like
talking
this
about I'm talking about emotions.
emotions. Oh, then for me, I don't actually have that much emotional attachment to Shores of Gold, honestly. 'Cause they kind of got this.
Really?
It just then again, I only played it once, and I remember one time we did like a battle in the Shores of Gold, so it was like, oh, I kind of know what this looks like now. I got demystified that
That's
one
fair.
time.
I was playing it with the context of like right before Anniversary, I reached Pirate Legend, and also the Shores of Gold story is a like from Tall Tale 1 to Tall Tale 9 is a continuation of the book Athena's Fortune, which I had read a good amount of by then, and it completes the story of Rathbone, the Gold Hoarder, and the Pirate Lord.
I'll have to like look at the story from beginning to end, probably because, like I said, I never read the books, but definitely still a good tall tale. I do like Shores of Gold more than this one.
But obviously, this isn't about Shores of Gold.
Yeah, that's
Any
for another time.
Yeah, yeah. Any final thoughts on a pirate's life?
Play it if you haven't already. Do it.
Basically, the next episode will be about the Sunken Pearl. Whenever I get that out, but you can probably expect the next video to be about Forsaken Hunter, which is the next adventure to reach Sea of Thieves. Anything
Yeah,
else, Derry?
Nothing much, and thanks for having me on here, man.
Thanks for coming. It's always a pleasure to have you here. I
Yeah.
love talking about this stuff. Like if you did, it really helps out. And hey, why not subscribe?
Yeah.
I want to thank Derry for coming here, and I want to thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys on the next one. Bye.
See y'all. Bye bye.